Did you hear it?
Yeah, I heard it. This is one of the only live streams where you have twisted open a bottle instead of
True.
opened a beer. I want to say in all 95 shows, this is the 95th. Pretty amazing.
That's right. I've had a couple of,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh, yeah, those. Oh,
but
how many twists?
I think it might be the first.
It might be the first cap, like the twist cap.
An actual twist instead of
We're making history here. We're making history.
I have a delicious ginger beer,
Nice.
and it's a fancy one. I think I've got it at Costco.
Ooh.
You get like 500 of these for whatever they charge. Costco is like you can't get just a couple. It's like
Yeah.
it's basically a truck load.
No. You can't just get like one or two at Costco. But
No,
that's the beauty of Costco. You
well,
know,
you have Costco unless you. It's like if you don't have room
oh God, yeah.
for whatever they're selling there. But
That's exactly right. I remember when I was a kid, we didn't have a Costco near us, but one time we went with one of my friends' families, and I remember we bought giant boxes of Gushers and Airheads. So as a child, I was like, "This is the best. This is the best. Hands down, the best."
good
But
lord,
my mom was like, she ended up like trying to buy stuff for the family, and she was reflecting on it later, and I remember her saying like, "What am I going to do with 200 muffins?"
no, that
And it made me laugh so hard. And it's true. Like you get tired of eating certain things, and where are you going to keep them? And after a while, that lemon poppy seed is just the worst thing in the world.
it's great for toilet paper.
Great for
But,
toilet
if you
paper.
have room to store it, like I grew up in a family of seven
Oh my God.
parents, and my grandmother lived with us also. And if Costco didn't exist back then, but if it had, that would have been unbelievable.
Right.
My parents would have been like just all over that. But anyway,
Yeah, well, I think it's incredibly useful for tons of families and for different reasons. Anyways, I need to get how is this ginger beer, Chris? Is it tasty?
oh
Do you
yeah,
recommend?
very gingery, very gingery. I
Very
like.
gingery. Oh, is it like ginger ale or is like just like almost like a
Oh no,
spiciness?
no, it's more ginger beer is like serious ginger. It like your nose starts to kind of
Oh, wow. It's like
oh, yeah,
aggressively
ginger beer is
gingery.
the real thing. It's pretty intense.
Oh my.
Highly recommend it. Um,
Yes. We
oh,
have some
they,
friends out in our chat.
I didn't even
Susan
say
M.
that.
Davis is my goodness, lives very close to the church shooting. I'm so
Yeah,
sorry to hear that.
I haven't even heard about that one. Jesus Christ, what a country.
Mass shootings in this country. I can't believe it. I
But
just
anyway,
cannot believe it.
thank you for being here, Susan, and our friend Chance is here. Oh, how
So
about
good to see you, Chance and Susan, and our friend Becky Comstra. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Our audience. We have some newer audience members who have become regulars lately. Melissa Slattery, Bauke Kamstra, Murray Mitchell, but she's been watching for months and months now. I shouldn't say that. Bauke.
here?
Okay, that's the prononciation.
Mom and Dad are here.
Mom and Dad are here, of course.
Coming up
Brenda
on their
is here.
50th anniversary next week. Is that right?
50th
50th.
anniversary, everyone. Please do not be shy. Give a shout out, give a hello to my parents celebrating 50 years. That is both beautiful and amazing, and just like, wow. How did they do it? But I'm so glad that they did. I think it's a
We should have
beautiful and amazing thing.
a special night with them just to talk about. Yeah, it's a non-literary night. Just like
Non-literary mom and dad night.
50 years. That's amazing. Bless you. May there be 50 more.
Amen. I completely agree. I think it is absolutely amazing, and we're gonna have a wonderful dinner next weekend, and planning to have just a beautiful, beautiful get together with our family and with a lot of fun and presents. And I've been like, I'm so bad about like chatting about the presents I buy and like totally giving away, but I'm not going to give it away.
Oh, don't give it away, but I'm sure,
Yes.
sure, it's going to be pretty spectacular. And
Oh, it will be. It will be. I mean, it kind of already is. I've been looking at all these old photos and I can't believe it. It's just amazing. It's just amazing.
but I'm
Thank you
telling
so
you,
much, Chris.
yeah. But Katie, I mean, a BMW. That's pretty
You
hardcore gift for 50.
it's hard for me to be quiet about my extravagant generosity. Gosh, I wish I could. I wish I could, Chris. On an adjunct professor salary.
That's the amazing part. It's
Well, how did she do it? How did I do it?
how, how did
Right?
how did you do that?
How
Well, that's a
Thanks
whole.
for the BMW, mom says in the chat.
whole Thanks for the beamer. All
I
right now,
am just getting over this like late spring flu that like everybody who doesn't have COVID right now. So anyone who is sick out there, please take care of yourselves. I'm with you. There's like a wave of people who have been, just thrilled to get out of the house these days and, kind of get out a little bit more and, have just caught something. So,
well, the masks are off, so everybody is basically in kindergarten.
yeah, right back. Very susceptible to things all over again, right?
Flying around.
For sure. But we need to give our official welcome. I'm actually 2 minutes late
Oh
on
my
the
gosh!
I know. To Fumfa 95. It is Pub Night 2022. And pub meaning publishing night. We did have Dane Sawyer said, I thought this was an in-person pub meetup. And I think Ryan Stovall said, me too. And I said, hey, well, we do have in-person pub meetups. So please, follow our
Right,
social pages.
and that's
But this is our pub night 2022 tonight. We have with us two literary journals, Causeway Lit and Spry Literary Journal. Both of them are run by Fumfa people. So this is like an all Fumfa night. We are so excited, not only to see these lovely editors, but to get to talk to them about their amazing publications. So from Causeway Lit, we have with us Stuart Phillips, and we have Valerie Peralta. And from Spry Literary Journal, we have Erin Olila and Lindsay Covino. And we're just pumped to be able to hang out with them and hear more about their journals tonight. But Chris,
right.
can you also tell us what's coming up after our little summer, late spring vacation?
Right. Well, it's right. The next 2 weeks we're gonna be off gallivanting around doing all kinds of things.
Celebrating anniversaries.
Anniversaries, Memorial Day, all these kinds of things. So, but we'll be back in 3 weeks,
Yes.
8 o'clock on that Sunday of let's see, what is that? June 5th, and we're going to be back with our old friend Victoria Buitron, another Fumfa alum and all-star, reading from her recently published book, which was the Fairfield Book Prize winner. And we'll also have Mega Sood on that night, who's a poet, I believe.
Finishing line press poet.
There you go. Following week, on the 12th of June, we have Woodhall Press Night. Our friends who are Fumfa alums, and we're going to have 4 writers from Woodhall Press: Allison K. Williams, Patricia Christofouli, Gregory Norris, and Mindy Henderson. These are writers who have recent books from Woodhall Press. They're going to be reading their stuff. And then we have Father's Day night with Rebecca Hazelton and Susan Davis, our friend who's joining us from California. And then 6/26, we got Chris Abate, our old friend from North Carolina. It's going to be North Carolina night. We're going to have a whole bunch of poets from the great state of North Carolina. So that takes us up through the end of June. So
And, our 100th show is coming up.
that's
Uh,
right.
we are very, very excited about this, and Chris and I will be taking the mic on the 100th show. We're excited about that, and, no matter what we're able to do, we are planning to be around on Alumni Day on the island in Mystic, so we'll be able to do something a little bit special there. Stay tuned for details for Sunday, July 17th. But let's pace ourselves here. We need to get started with tonight, and we need to welcome our first literary journal guest, Causeway Lit. We need to welcome Stuart and Valerie. Welcome.
Hi.
It's so good to see you.
Hi, guys.
Okay, let me read your bio before I get totally excited and carried away, even though I already am. Stuart Phillips is an expatriate Mississippian, former Army officer, and recovering lawyer so is my dad, who now lives in the Mohawk Valley of New York. A graduate of Ole Miss, Pepperdine, and Fairfield University, Stuart is slowly driving himself mad with revisions on the great Southern novel. You can follow his descent at stuartphillips.work or on Instagram at DeltaWriter12. Valerie Peralta found her way to poetry after working for 20 plus years as a part-time copy editor and a full-time mom, with lots of volunteer gigs along the way. She holds an MFA from Fairfield University and is an assistant editor for Brevity, a journal of concise literary nonfiction, and a contributor to Wind and Root and at Reckon Review. Her writing focuses on the complexities of relationships with occasional appearances by the exotic fauna and flora she encounters around her South Florida home. Okay, official welcome to Stuart and Valerie now.
Bravo.
Stuart and Valerie, I'm going to screen share, if that's okay, Causeway Lit, just so that people can take a look at the website. But as I'm doing that, would you tell us a bit about the history of Causeway Lit as a literary journal?
So Fairfield has a print literary journal called Dogwood. And sort of as an adjunct to that, which is run through the English department, Causeway Lit is an online only journal that is staffed completely by MFA students.
Nice.
It has existed for 6 years. First issue was in 2016. And it runs contests throughout the year through Submittable.
Nice.
And it does have the distinction of, although we do charge a submission fee, which helps pay for the website and all that, we also give prizes. We give a cash honorarium to
Nice.
first place and occasionally second and third place, depending on what we've got in the till. So, we do try to make it a rewarding gig in more ways than just getting published.
Right.
It also is, since it's run by MFA students, there's a rotating cast. Valerie and I served as co-editors in chief for actually a little over a year. We were readers for a year and then EICs for a year, and then turned that over. And it depends on when the current editors are graduating as to someone else gets to step up. We took over from Victoria, as a matter of fact, and I forget.
Kristen Dolly, Victoria.
Yes. So we took over from them, and we focused on kind of streamlining a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, making sure that a handbook was there for the new editors and the old people, and streamlining some of the submittable stuff. And I see that that
We're
has
still on there. That needs to be updated.
Oh, oops.
No, but actually, if you'll scroll down, please.
oh yeah, it's
You said
Dan
Dan,
Gorman and Ryan Stovall.
right?
Yes,
Ah.
they've been functioning as the EICs
Ah,
for a
Okay.
bit
okay.
now, so they're running stuff. But I know Ryan should be graduating, or did no, he did graduate.
He graduated, but he was coming back, I think, for another.
Oh, cool. Why
Hey.
not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Okay.
He's a serial MFA-er.
So
So
that's our history.
Yeah.
thank you so much. So Causeway Lit is a Fairfield University MFA literary journal.
Right.
Is it for students only?
Yeah.
No, it is actually not. Well, students only run it, but it
Aha.
is not for students to publish in.
Right.
Aha.
We have a rule that I believe it's 1 year after you graduate before you're supposed to
Right.
even submit to Causeway,
Right.
with the proviso that students and staff members can submit craft essays and
Nice.
book reviews.
Ah, great.
Yeah.
So,
Fabulous.
Katie, I don't know, you probably remember when we were in the program, we had, or
Yes.
towards the end anyway, we had
Lisa Calderon,
started
Mason's Road.
which at the time was our version, I guess, of Causeway Lit. And do you know, either of you, was there a gap in between those, or was there like Mason's Road kind of became Causeway Lit, or like how did that work? Because I kind of lost track of it at a certain point.
From the one paragraph that they've told us on the website, it transitioned to Causeway Lit.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good then. That's good. I'm happy because because I worried that it would just kind of disappear.
But the archives on the website only go back to 2016.
Right.
I
So
see.
if Mason's Road was prior to that, then
It was, yes.
yeah.
Yeah, Erin just popped in our chat.
It says
chat.
gap.
There's a gap. I believe there was, because Lisa very, very sadly passed away a bunch of years back, and it's really wonderful to see an MFA student run literary journal. It is looking gorgeous. The design is beautiful. The work is incredible. And it is just amazing to see that it is thriving, and that there are students rotating through, getting to work as editors-in-chief, as readers, and getting to read other people's work. And so that means, audience members, that you should, if you are not a current student or graduated within 1 year, that you should absolutely be sending to Causeway Lit.
For sure.
I really want to ask you both, what features make Causeway Lit stand out to you? What are your favorite aspects of Causeway Lit?
So I would say the fact that it is student run, and I've read on Lit Twitter about how some people dog the MFA or MFA literary journals, but there was a freedom to it. I'd say that we probably, of course, we're looking for quality writing that really moves the reader, right? But there wasn't a through line where it has to be this or it has to be. It just had to be good and tweak enough eyes that that we knew that we would wanted to put the Causeway Lit name to it, to marry the two. Another feature of it that's just kind of important, I think, for everybody to know, is that there are levels of reading too. It wasn't, there's at least a minimum of 3 levels. So you have the readers, the associate editor, or the section editors, and then the editors-in-chief making that selection. So you've got lots of eyes on something. So that's a good thing and a bad thing. But for me, as also a writer, it helped me realize that not to take declines so hard, because one person could really love it. Okay, that's great, but you have to get through everybody else too. And
Right.
sometimes, what's that, Chris?
People forget that. I mean, writers will forget. I mean, even, experienced writers will just sort of like forget that. It's like, they send a story or poem or whatever in, and then it gets, passed on, and you think, oh, well, the world's against me or whatever. It's like, but somebody might have really loved it,
Right.
but there's a lot of people involved.
And you're also up against a lot, like, wow, we would get between 50 to 100 submissions per genre. So,
Right.
and at some point, you have to cut them off too, just to make sure that you give everybody a fair amount of time.
Right. And I think, like, even among the ones that you're not choosing, you're like, well, this one is just not being chosen, but it doesn't make it any less excellent or wonderful. You hope the best for it, maybe.
Yeah. So one of the things that I really liked about Causeway, one, we're not snotty.
I love it. I love it. No snot.
Not at all. Not at all.
Some of these journals feel like, hate to say this, but like their shit don't stink.
Yeah.
And you know what? Sorry, man, it does. And the other thing is, we don't care who you are.
Yes.
You can be a freshman creative writing student at Miami-Dade Community College with an amazing piece. And compared to an associate professor at Berkeley who gave us some crap piece and was like, well, I've got 3 books published and 14. Yeah, well, you know what? This piece really isn't that good, but thank you. I mean, of course, to them, we're like, thank you so much for submitting to us. We really appreciate that. But it just doesn't fit what we're looking for in this issue. I mean,
Right.
We're really being able to, it's like people talk about small businesses. Being a small literary journal, you're agile, right?
Exactly.
You don't have shareholders. We really don't get much money from Fairfield, so we don't care. If it's good, man, we're going to say yes.
Right.
And then hopefully it wasn't picked up somewhere else.
And it's not going to be like, I remember there was a time, in submitting things out there, every journal, and now because so much is online, people, there can be so many more types of journals like this, but it seemed like back in the print days, you couldn't pick up a journal where it wasn't Joyce Carol Oates had a story.
Right.
Come on, chill
Or
out.
like certain 10 poets that everyone knows, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, here's an example. When Valerie and I were editors in chief, we wanted to do a special issue on Black Lives Matter.
Nice.
So we especially wanted to get some, BIPOC authors, right?
Totally.
So I had an author that I had just interviewed for my project. Great. Had a book that just came out. Really good book. Black guy from Memphis. I mean, right on the tee with what we wanted. So I contacted him. And I said, hey, we're having a special issue. We're having a contest, I would love for you to submit to the contest. I didn't promise him that we were going to publish his work. And he had to go through the exact same 3 steps that everybody else that submitted went through.
Right.
He ended up winning because it was a really it was totally cool. But, if the reader had said, and if the section editor had said, then I would have just said, hey.
It would have been just like everyone else. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Excellent. I love that. And that's, for me, that's also been the vibe of the, FUMFA experience. It's good people who are kind of just looking at what you're handing them, looking at you, and just, it's not a snotty experience. It's a lovely community.
I have a question because it's a student run magazine, right? So it's not like this is what you do, right? It's not like your job. I mean, it is your job, but it's not your job.
It doesn't pay the bills.
It doesn't.
Right.
You're still student. You're still writing and doing all the stuff you have to do to be a student, and you're the editors. I for Mason's Road, I was fiction editor for a semester or two. I can't remember how long, but there's a lot of work involved, right? I mean, you're
Yeah.
reading a lot of stuff. You're deciding, thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever, and who gets a prize and all this kind of stuff. So how do you find the balance? Because you're writing your own stuff and you're doing, craft essays or whatever you're doing, and third semester, blah blah blah. How do you find that right balance?
Oh, we were supposed to balance that? Carol Ann, God damn it. You say something to us.
I would say that wasn't so much the challenge. You just find time. Well, actually, Stuart is like, through all his this, former that, he's a great time manager and really taught me a lot. I learned a lot from dear Stuart. I actually made a lot of mistakes and learned them at the expense of mostly the readers, not the writers. But yeah, so thanks to everybody for that. But I would say the challenge is more balancing, not so much like our schedules, but those of the readers, because they're also students too. So trying to be fair to both the writers, like not to hang on to something too long,
Right.
but also fair to the readers on the fact that, hey, they're students too, they're doing this pro bono as well. So just to find that, the real challenge was more to find the time, that balance between, and we tried to keep it under 3 months. And that even felt, that's as a writer, that feels like a long time,
Yeah.
but we keep it under 3
But like,
months.
as far as literary journals go, like 3 months, like, okay.
Yeah. But so that was more trying to find the balance of that and not to overload the readers with, because.
And Valerie and I we're both veterans. And so, we both come from the mindset of the leader, and then the editor is the leader, right?
Yeah.
And the leader does extra work so that the subordinates don't have to.
Yeah.
So, when we need to do things to make it easier for the section editor, for the reader, to help, set the pace, keep things going smooth and gentle for everybody so that everything gets done, but nobody gets overworked.
I love that. I love that. You guys sound like excellent leaders and editors. I hope you can have the opportunity to continue to working with Causeway or in other editing capacities. But, a big question that a lot of our audience members, ourselves included, would love to know, and you've kind of hinted at this, well, you kind of said it already, is how can people get published in Causeway Lit? How can we get ourselves into this literary journal with this beautiful design? How do we get in there?
Submittable.
So, right. They open up. I'm not sure when Dan and Ryan are opening up the contest. It's typically 3 times a year, 2 to 3 times a year. So just keep an eye on that of when submissions are open. But here's the thing, of course, submit great work and really pay attention to the guidelines. Ours is not Causeway Lit is anonymous, and Stuart was beyond generous. He would contact writers and let them fix.
Get your name off of this, right?
Like one writer, I don't even remember the names. We don't have to worry about going unnamed. They will, but and I think we said something, hey, you've got your name on this. And she's like, oh, well, it's nonfiction. It kind of refers to me, but what can I do? It's not creative nonfiction. It's like, no, your name is in the mass, or on not the mass, but at the top.
Get it out of there.
Yeah.
We didn't see it.
Just to be fair to everybody, you really have to hold to your guidelines. So I would just say, submit great stuff. And read the guidelines. Read how many pages. What's the page limit? Whatever else it is, whether it's Causeway Lit or anything. Just follow
Right.
those guidelines.
Don't get automatically disqualified or make the editors do extra work.
It is enormously disrespectful to show that you cannot be impinged upon to read one paragraph on how they would like to see your work presented.
I say that to my students all the time too, but that's a different story. No, but that's absolutely true. You want to be published, you want to be published by this journal. The least that you can do is read and follow the guidelines to the best of your ability. It's the least that you can do. I completely agree. Before we move over to chatting with Spry, I would love to give you the chance to give any shout outs, any favorite pieces, fabulous contributors, great editors, readers, staff, any shout outs you'd like to make before we move on.
Valerie, you want to go first?
Mine, all of because they were winning, everything we published, I would say was just great stuff. So I don't have names to throw out for all of those, but I already said Stuart. Stuart was just taught me a lot, and as hard ass as he just sounded, like you show you're being disrespectful. He was so kind to the writers, to the readers, to everybody. Also, Ryan Stovall, who was the poetry editor under us, knew some really good stuff, and he was the one who had to at his expense. I learned a few things, and Dan Gorman taking over, and then those who handed it on to us, Victoria Boutron and Kristen Dolly handed off a very great literary journal that it was then fun to be able to do for that year. And I gotta say, Fairfield, that it was really a lot of autonomy that could be the other name of it. There was nobody telling us what to do.
I love that.
And I'm gonna plug a book, an author named Edward Farmer.
Mm-hmm.
He's the guy who won the Black Lives Matter contest.
Nice.
But his book Pale was, if you like Southern sort of family dynamic stuff,
Nice.
really, really good stuff. I'm interviewing him, in fact, for Valerie and I both are craft column contributors to Reckon Review.
Excellent.
And I'm doing an interview with Edward next month for his second book that he's finishing now. But really good stuff. And it was interesting because we also had I forget her name, but there was a Black lady who wrote a nonfiction piece about her hair and how she had been raised to, tame it, and then eventually decided to just let it be. And it was a good essay. And oddly, like 4 or 5 months later, I see 2 other essays on that same topic in big magazines. And I thought, all right, well, Causeway Lit 4 months ahead of you guys.
I think it also says something about the feelings and writings of people of the moment. But I think Causeway Lit is absolutely has a big thing to do with this.
We got our finger on the zeitgeist.
That's exactly it.
I am going to go back a minute. I'm going to take over here. The craft essays actually there were some really great craft essays. Recently, they just posted one, a writer's take on showing versus telling by Allie Dixon is really great. And I can't remember her name now, Stuart. There was a professor from UPenn who she submitted something. Stuart told her it's not quite what we were looking for. She appreciated his, response so much that she wrote something specifically for Causeway Lit.
Oh my God.
I'll tell you her name in a minute here.
That's
And then
awesome.
I think that was included in an anthology of some of her craft stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well,
Beth Kephart. I'm not sure if it's Kephart
Oh yeah,
or
Beth
Kephart.
Kephart. Yeah.
thank you so much. That is so great. Great to hear some little shout outs there. Everybody out there, if you are a poet, a fiction writer, a nonfiction writer, any kind of a writer, you got to check out you have to check out Causeway Lit. Read their submission guidelines carefully. And
And
please
what is the URL that what Causeway Lit dot?
Oh,
Oh.
it's causewaylit.com. But of course, on Google, it pops up first one, as long as you have no spelling errors, But yes, causewaylit.com. Go over there, submit your work, and you will be read by current students of the Fairfield University MFA program, and hopefully will be published. And that would be absolutely amazing. Let's give a round of applause for our Causeway Lit editors of the evening, Stuart Phillips and Valerie Peralta. Woo, thank you so much.
They'll be back later to answer your.
They'll be back to answer your questions at 9:00. Thank you so much, guys. All right. What a fabulous start to the evening, Chris. Pub Night 2022.
Beautiful. Perfect.
Yes. And we are now also at this, we have our second literary journal of the evening, Fumfa. Fumfa people run literary journal of the evening. We are so excited to welcome Spry Literary Journal's Erin Olilla and Lindsay Covino. Hey! It is so good to see you both, you guys. It's been so long, and you guys kind of remember the old days with me and Chris from near the very beginning of the program. Anyways, how are you this evening?
Good. I am so happy to see your faces. We are actually, Lindsay and I were the fourth cohort. So we were the first full, including you guys, we were the first full graduating cohorts of the program.
That's right. Yeah. Where there were actually people in all cohorts.
Yeah, it's actually shocking to me that because Lindsay and we graduated in 2012, so it's shocking to me that it's been a decade since we got our MFA.
I hear you.
It's just utterly floors me.
Weird.
What is time?
Exactly. When I look back, I posted up some photos from the old MFA days when we first got started, and for our anniversary celebrations in March, and I'm looking at all these photos. I'm like, these are all at least 10 years old, and we don't know how it happened. We just do not know. Anyways, before I get carried away, Chris, will you read Erin and Lindsay's bios for us?
I will. Erin Olilla is a conversion copywriter who believes in the power of words and how a message can inform and even transform its intended audience. She helps big brands and small businesses marry strategy, storytelling, and SEO. I'm going to have to ask her what SEO means. Erin from Fairfield University.
Engine optimization.
Yeah, search engine optimization.
You are so hip. Erin graduated from Fairfield University with an MFA in creative writing, of course she did, and lives in southeastern Massachusetts with her family. Reach out to her on Instagram at Erin Olilla, or learn more about her at erinolilla.com. Now, Lindsay's a poet, writer, marathon runner, and co-founder of Spry Literary Journal. She has been awarded grants from the cities of Somerville and Cambridge, Mass., and subsequently co-created 2 public art projects, Poetry of Science, and Through These Realities. Linda runs and resides in Boston, Mass., with her husband, our old friend Cisco, who was was the first. I don't know if there have been any others.
Is this the first Fumfa baby?
They're
First Fumfa baby, first Fumfa marriage.
she lives with Cisco and their son and a big cat and a tiny dog. So, welcome.
Welcome, Lindsay and Erin.
Thanks for having us.
Yes. We are thrilled to have you, and we are so excited and happy for Spry and everything that you've been doing. I am going to just screen share your website. But while I am doing that, would you mind sharing a little bit about the history of Spry Literary Journal?
How did this thing get started? Tell us.
Sure. Lindsay, you want me to go first?
Yeah, kick it off. I'll be
This
back.
is one of my favorite stories, to be honest with you. Spry started because both Lindsay and I were editors of Mason's Road, which we just talked about, which was Fairfield's original student-run literary journal for the MFA program. As I mentioned, we were graduating in 2012, and at the time, both Lindsay and I were working in the administrative fields while we were getting our MFAs, and we talked to each other through Google Chat quite a bit during the workday. So when discussing things like how did we format our thesis and like what are the graduation requirements, we asked ourselves, like, what the heck are we going to do now, right? Especially when it came to being involved in the literary world, because it was fine that we were both in administrative jobs. We knew we wanted to transition into the writing world in some way, shape, or form. Didn't know exactly what that was. We just knew we didn't want to stop, the literary community and the literary world in our immediate lives. So, we were young and carefree, about to get our MFA, and we're like, let's just start our own literary journal. I look back on it now as like this sweet, like naive young girls thinking they could just start their own journal. But that's how we started. We just thought to ourselves, like, oh, I wouldn't say it was selfish, but in some ways it was like our selfish want to continue doing what we were doing.
Yes.
And we just, were naive enough to think that like we could do anything, which in some ways we have. And I want to give like us the credit for the fact that we are completely unaffiliated. We are completely volunteer run. We have been for the past decade now. This is our 10th year publishing. And, we don't charge for our journal. It is all just, it's volunteer run. It is completely free to submit. We have 13 published issues, as well as a small mini series.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's the whole story. It is, as fun and boring as it is right there. Just two young girls wanting to do something with their future, not sure what it was, so we just winged it and started a website and thought life was grand.
And you did it for what, 13 years?
No,
13 issues, 10 years. Yeah.
10 years though.
10 years this year, yeah. I mean, it's literally past 10 years since we decided on it, and December will be 10 years since the first issue was actually live.
Amazing.
I've always loved that page, that home page there where you just have pictures of the writers. Scroll down there a little bit and
we might see someone that we recognize here.
Oh, check out that handsome fella. I forgot you were in our most recent issue.
So I mean,
not brag or anything.
I mean, you might see pictures of the writers, in a literary journal, like, if you go to the story or, there's like a contributors page or something. Home page, boom. Writers are real people. You can see their faces there.
I like that.
It's really nice.
Yeah, and it's kind of like choose your own adventure too. That's part of the reason we have that, right? So it was like, if you continue to scroll down, which you don't have to do, but like what you'll see is like how our site's set up. So then you can search by, it's our table of contents, our editor's notes. If you want to just read flash or just read poetry or just view our artwork, you can make your decisions that way. But, I love the idea of, as a journal that only takes concealed submissions and then publishes them after we know who people are, I love the idea that for most issues we can be pretty diverse and we can, have a wide range of people on our covers. And I just like that you can kind of choose your own option when it comes here and just take a chance to see what you get. So
I love that. I love that because it's just like, who is this person? What is their story? What have they contributed here? What is Chris Belden saying about lamb chops in this, you know?
It's the ages old question.
Right.
Now I'm gonna have to read it. I need to know. That is so great. Well, congratulations on so many years of Spry and for just going for it. So,
you.
saying we want to continue to do this and just diving in and doing it. That is absolutely awesome. And I think everyone in the MFA who knows about you guys is so proud of you too. So aside from this fabulous, very, very interesting layout and, just your story, what features of the journal make you stand out? What are some of your favorite aspects of it?
Scone, you want to do this one?
Yeah. So, and I was actually, some of this ties in nicely to what Erin was describing earlier about history. One of the probably most prominent outstanding features of Spry is, like the title suggests, that we're focusing on like economy of words, very brief, muscular prose. What can you do in a limited space? And part of that, and Erin, correct me if I'm wrong, but part of that was inspired by your third semester project which was focusing on micro nonfiction. Or
Nice.
Correct me, I may not have that perfectly right, but there was a lot that we had learned in that time and found really impressive about what you can do in that space and the impact that it can have on a reader. So bringing that in and sort of blowing it out into a literary journal felt kind of like a really interesting combination, like experiment plus like study. And so that has really paid off. It's been really, really impressive to see what direction folks take that in. So I think that is definitely, first and foremost on its head, the thing that I usually start with.
Nice.
I would add to Erin's point, the fact that we are all volunteer run, and the fact that we do have that sort of autonomy, and people are coming to work with us out of pure passion and pure just like love for what they're doing, love for the journal,
love it.
for the readers. To me, that's always really inspiring, like very, very motivating. So I think that's another thing I think that energy reflects in the issues that we publish.
Absolutely. And I think what you said about like an economy of words and just really muscular prose, that is also in kind of encapsulated in the word spry. Like, is that the reason for the choice?
Oh yeah. Also, you can tell that Lindsay is the poet of the bunch, because I love how she just used the word muscular prose and all these other things. And I was like, thank goodness you're my co-founder, because I'm just like, yeah, we started a journal.
I felt it.
That's what makes you a great team. And you guys, 10 years, you guys were, I think, kind of out ahead on this, because then I don't know how much. Well, I don't know how much you like research in terms of the what's out there now, but it just seems like every online journal now does, micro, flash, whatever. It's like it's become like the thing for online journals now. But I think 10 years ago, maybe not so much. So.
No.
Yeah, that's actually a really great point, and it's one that I don't think Lindsay and I even talk enough about. And we talk about like the history is when we first started. Lindsay was the one who introduced me to Flash as a concept when we were in school.
Mm-hmm.
I was a creative nonfiction student, Lindsay poetry, and she found I forget who the author was. Maybe she'll remember, but it was an author who was like on the line of like prose poetry and Flash fiction.
Nice.
And it was really
James Tate.
Yeah, well, maybe, I don't know, right? Maybe Lindsay, it was that stands out now, so sure. But we loved it, and Lindsay was right when she mentioned before I was changing rooms, but my third semester project was about micro nonfiction and how we are living our life through essays on social media, which at the time in 2012, social media was vastly different from how it is now. So when we were choosing to like have status updates as an example, there was no like, what's your story, right? Like it would say something online like Erin Olilla is, and then we would answer that question. So, you know, a lot of things were happening in Lindsay's studies of school and my, studies in my third semester project.
Right.
And we were reading a lot of long literature. And in
Right.
all honesty, I mean, here's the truth. We didn't want to read huge things coming into our journal. I'm just gonna be honest with you. And it was more of like also like our capacity planning, not working in the creative field, being a completely volunteer journal, reading some things forever because we both are very giving and kind people that like when you're reading something from an editorial standpoint, we just wouldn't give up even if we knew we should give up. So we just decided like the reason we went with Spry and we wanted things to be brief because unfortunately brevity was taken at that point. Was we just wanted to have like a shorter word count for what we received in our journal.
Nice. That is so fascinating and wonderful and very, very resonant. And what you just said about social media and how that's changed over time. Oh my God, I can't like just right. Like where is the time? What is
it doesn't exist.
Totally. Another question for you both. What are the challenges that you face as editors? Maybe like one or two of the biggest challenges that you face.
I think the biggest challenge is just the fact that we're a volunteer journal that's fully funded out of Lindsay's and I's pockets.
Yes.
And it's weird because I don't necessarily think it's a challenge. Like it has been challenging in moments. Some of them our own fault, some of them just needing help, right? So when I say our own fault, what I mean is like in the past 10 years, Lindsay and I both moved out of administrative jobs into creative writing jobs. And through those creative writing jobs, we've moved into new jobs. Lindsay being a manager in some job, me moving into self-employment.
Nice.
We both got married during this time. We've had combined, we've had 3 children during this time. So when we talk about capacity planning, yes, it's wonderful. We wanted to read things under 2,500 words for our longest pieces, but capacity planning also had to factor in life. So, and some of our issues took forever to get published just because we stood in our own way. And then the other part is, relying on volunteers. We have been wonderfully blessed with the people who come on board for our volunteers. Yay. But it's, like we just talked about with Causeway Lit, like, we're relying on their time and their ability to be able to review a mass amount of work. We run our submissions all year round. There's no open and close periods, or at least there hasn't been in the past decade. So we get hundreds and hundreds of submissions every month.
That's awesome.
It is, but it is a lot on the staff, right? So I'd say for me, that was my biggest challenge.
Absolutely. Lindsay, did you want to add anything, or I have another?
I think just the one sort of building off of Erin's point, and talking specifically about being out of pocket. I think Erin and I are both very big dreamers, and we tend to, at least I feel that it's not just here's the dream, like it would be so great if, but it's like here's the dream. And here are the 5 things that we need to do to reach that dream. Yay. So it's all laid out, but we're almost like thinking bigger than what our budget, our time budget, as well as our actual budget is affording. So sometimes it can be like, oh, like if only we had this working for us, like we could, we could go to the whatever the next level is, or we could do this or that. And I mean, I think we are like always working toward those big dreams, which is amazing. And I think it just takes a little bit more time than you want it to, and you're really excited to do something new and grow this project that we love so much.
Totally. And that absolutely makes sense. But we're excited for you guys, and within your capacities, we know that Spry will continue to be amazing, and that hopefully any of these goals and dreams that you are cooking on will get to happen. And if Chris and I can help somehow, I'm just volunteering, Chris, but or help spread the word, or anything that we could do on our end, we would love to help you out, including I know you're getting many submissions, but But we would love to know how our audience, or people, ourselves, how people can get published in Spry. What are some pointers that you have, recommendations, guidance?
Adding to Causeway, 100% follow the guidelines. And I think that there are a lot of different guidelines we are very loosey-goosey with. And, it's okay if things are a little off. The one that is not okay with us is blind submissions, non-blindly submitting your work. That is something Lindsay and I made a very conscious decision that we wanted to do in the beginning when we started our journal, because we were mostly unpublished writers. I mean, besides maybe our undergraduate degrees at the time of starting our journal. And I think the one most beautiful thing for us in issue number 1 is we published people who had many books alongside of people who had been published for their very first time ever.
Awesome.
And we've gotten many people who have been published for their very first time ever. Now, 10 years down the road, we also find out things that they published with us. That first publication went on to be like their book, like their nonfiction book, or the name of their poetry collection that got published by big name publishers.
Nice.
So that, I think for me, has been one of the most beautiful things about being a Spry person. So we take it seriously for multiple reasons. One, we don't want to have a completely, you saw all the photos on the cover. We don't want them to be all white men in our literary journal. So when you submit to us with, without any of your identifying information, we don't know who you are. And we make all of our decisions within that like blind circle of not knowing who's submitting.
Right.
So I'd say like that's my hugest pet peeve. And we are very, very strict with that. If people are submitting via Submittable, all journals are slightly different. So while I'm in giving the advice for all journals, just know this might be a little bit different. But if you're in creative nonfiction, of course, and it says like, my sister says, Sally, I can't believe you do that. And your name is Sally. Cool. Submit away. But the only place you should be putting any identifying information in is the cover letter. We cannot see that at all on our side. The title of your piece, meaning like the document title that you upload, the title that you title it in Submittable, all those places, as well as your submission, can be viewed. So I think like, we've seen some really interesting like submissions where I'm like, why is your name and like your address in the middle of the 4th page? Like,
What happened?
So that's just one of the guidelines, but that's one that is very important to us because I think we've just seen how wonderful it is to publish, people in the same issue that have vastly different experiences.
Nice. That is awesome. That is really, really awesome. Okay, before we transition over to our Q&A time, I want to give you both a chance to give any shout outs, any favorite pieces, fabulous contributors, fabulous editors, readers, staff, etc.
First and foremost, I think we need to give a big shout out to our very own Phil Lemos. He's been an excellent editor and excellent reader. He's led issues 13 and 14. Yes.
Yeah. In the past 2 issues, literally just from having tiny babies and just knowing our own capacity, we decided we were going to start bringing on guest editors. Great. So the first person who has done that to help us with the issues has been Phil Lemos, who, if you don't know him well, which you probably do because I know he's been on here quite a few times, he is also a graduating member of the FUMFA. But so he's been our editor for the issue that is just published that you can see on our website and the one that will be coming out soon-ish. Sorry, Lindsay, take it over again.
Oh, no, thank you. That was great. The other shout out that I would like to give, so we talked a little bit at the beginning, at the top of the episode about Through These Realities and the Poetry of Science. Yes. And thanks to the, I guess, generosity and willingness to share of the poets, photographers, everyone that we've had collaborating on those projects, we are able to produce collaborative special issues. Ooh. So right now on the Sprylight homepage in the top of the bar, you'll see
okay.
I'll let you drive over.
Yes.
It's Poetry of Science X Yes. So
Ooh.
we have, this is our poetry of science, sort of, these are the poets, and the photos that resulted from this project as well are included here. This was a project that highlights sort of like people of color in the sciences, and ties with these original pieces of poetry that were created about scientists that were collaborating in the piece. And then upcoming toward the end of this year, you can keep your eye out for Through These Realities, which is a collaboration between photographers and poets.
That is so cool.
One quick thing to say on that, though, because I don't think Lindsay will give herself enough credit, is that Lindsay was one of the driving forces to make this happen. She and the people in charge of the projects put in grants through the state of Mass or the city of Boston, and then did all of the like finding of these people, the matching of these people, like making it happen and publishing it. So while Spry was definitely like a sponsor in the sense that it is being shared through our literary journal, Lindsay and other people, I mean, I don't know them, but the people that Lindsay have worked with on these projects are really the ones to spearhead them and make them happen.
Amazing.
And I mean, really, the project director, Josh, should be getting like top billing for the credit. But yeah, it's been a pleasure to collaborate on this and really help, spread the word and create this platform in such an important time.
That is so awesome. Listen, you can all go to sprylit.com and check out their most recent issue and this incredible collaboration, right? The special issue with Spry Lit and Poetry of Science. It looks absolutely beautiful, and I can't wait to check it out. I've been kind of looking around, but I haven't looked as much in there. I think that is absolutely amazing. And everyone should also grab a piece and submit.
Yes.
Submit to Spry. Except
Your name on it, though.
What's that?
Not your name on it.
Yes.
That's right.
Now everybody does that once. I think every writer does that once. That oops moment, because
Yeah.
because
I've done it too. So like, as much judgment is here, like I have done it myself.
I've done it too. We're all a little self-involved, especially when we're young and kind of dopey. But
and like I said, their guidelines are different for different places. So some places will say put it in your title and or whatever, right? So that's why I want to point out that while I like to know how submittable works,
but
everyone works different.
Pay attention, people.
Pay attention, everyone. All right. Well, so like I said, everyone out there, go check out sprylit.com. Go read the amazing issue. Go take a look at everything over there. Go submit. Follow the instructions carefully. And thank you so much for joining us, Lindsay Covino and Erin Olilla, our friends. You are all you're both absolutely fabulous, and we love Spry. Everybody out there, get those questions in the chat. It is time for our amazing editors of Causeway Lit and Spry to answer your questions. So while you are typing away, while all of our lovely audience right now is sending in all of their publishing questions for these wonderful literary journals, I have a question for each of you while our audience is typing. And I would love to know, how has being an editor for these particular journals inspired you or affected you as a writer? Because I know all of you are writers as well. So how has it inspired you? How has it affected you in maybe interesting and surprising ways? Maybe we can start with Stuart. Just put you on the spot there if you're ready, Stuart.
I am. So I'll be honest, I'm an incredibly judgmental person.
Okay.
I do usually turn the knife harshest upon myself. So I got two things out of reading, being a reader, an associate editor, and then an editor. Was number one, I saw that there's a lot of really bad writing out there, so stop beating myself up. And I also saw there's a lot of really good writing out there, and by reading it, I was able to really sort of expand my own repertoire.
Nice.
There's the occasional, there's the occasional even in a piece that isn't great, you may find that glimmer of sunset off the coast of Key West. You'd say that was a beautiful phrase.
True.
I'm not going to steal it, but it's going to make me think about describing a boiling pot differently than I would ever have thought of doing before.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Stuart. What about you, Valerie?
Yeah, I think reading just to see what other people do, but really for me, and I think I mentioned this before, is just it helped me realize that not to take it personally, not being accepted, not to take it personally, because there's just so much out there, and you just have to hit the editors just right. So that's probably the biggest thing I brought out of it. And I will say, like Erin and Lindsay, though, I love working with words, with writing. I've worked as a copy editor for a couple of News Weekly and then all arts and entertainment, and so just being involved with words and stories is fun.
Nice. What about you, Erin?
Yeah, I kind of to follow along with that. My two biggest things would be what Valerie said about, not taking it personally, but in a slightly different perspective, it's that rejections are not a bad thing in the slightest way, shape, or form. I mentioned that we have hundreds and hundreds of submissions every month, and it's a rolling calendar year. There's probably about 20 something every issue. So what is that? I mean, I can't do math. I don't even know why I mentioned all that. But the point is, we reject hundreds and hundreds of things each month. Some of them aren't just not publishable, but then a huge portion of our, huge, not joking, portion of what we reject are actually pretty decent. Maybe they're not going to fit because we've done something similar. So
that's right.
Being the rejector made me feel so much more at ease about submitting.
Totally.
And because rejections are just a very normal and not big deal. But in the similar perspective to how Valerie ended it, I don't work in creative writing. I'm a copywriter. I am a marketer at heart. I really love what I do. And part of my bio is I said that I try to bring storytelling into that. So there's pieces of creative stuff in my world, but then having Spry is just such a deep breath, an inhale and an exhale, to have that creative world still be part of my life. So I'm grateful for that.
That's awesome, Erin. What about for you, Lindsay?
I'm going to say first, just a double thumb up on the rejections are not a bad thing. Definitely a big takeaway for me. But also, I think sort of what I've learned about writing as an editor has been about the power of that relationship and what that relationship can really be between a writer and an editor, sort of like a conversation or a growth, which is, I'm reading somebody's writing for the first time. They're saying something that I've never read before. They're giving me this perspective that's coming from a walk of life that I couldn't even imagine.
Right.
And now we're going to have a conversation about how we can strengthen your piece. And at first, it can be very intimidating. You've said this thing and it really does seem perfect on its own. What is the approach to that? But in sort of working that out and getting to know the writers and having them get to know us, I'm bringing that then into my future conversations with editors as a writer, saying, okay, you know what, I'm going to put here what I think seems like the strongest way to present a perspective. Hopefully we'll have this opportunity to have the same dialogue. And if not, it just helps me stand stronger in the pieces of my work that I believe in.
That's awesome. Those are all wonderful. I love that question, and I love the ways that that you all have been, so positively affected and inspired by what you're doing, and this exposure to all this writing and this experience of working with all these writers and handling all of these pieces. That is really, really awesome. We have some questions in the chat.
You too.
Let's go for this question from Penelope Rokeby. This is for everyone, so we'll go around the circle. It says, are there certain characteristics of writing you see that will make you almost instantly reject something, or conversely, almost instantly decide to read it further? That is fascinating. Thank you so much, Penelope. Anyone want to jump in, and then we'll kind of go around the room?
I'll go. The only thing that will make me instantly want to reject something, and I know it may sound like a broken record, but it's not following guidelines. Not necessarily just those guidelines of whether or not to have been concealed submission, but for example, for us in our poetry, we only allow for 3 poems at a time because we are inundated with poetry at all times, like most journals are. So if you send me 25 poems, I'm like, see you later. Like, have a great day at that point.
Yes, they need your respect.
Yeah, and I mentioned like I can be a little more easygoing because in this case, sometimes journals allow for 5 poems, sometimes 2. And I know that's confusing. So if, for example, someone sent us 5 poems, I'm not going to instantly reject them for most of the time, even though it says everywhere that we read 3. But again, 25 is a lot different than 5.
Yeah.
And it's happened. It has literally happened.
I'm sure that it has. Yeah. Thank you so much, Aaron.
If I could, an instant rejection would be if your submission reads like something an ex-husband would write to his ex-wife.
Oh my God.
I mean, if it is a racist or misogynistic diatribe, I don't care. You know what, buddy? You've got problems that go beyond creative writing.
No.
Goodbye.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we've seen a lot of that in the past couple of years. And I don't know if that's just because, of the mental health of everyone in the pandemic, but I have seen such an increase of horrifying things come in that, I've been like, I'm not going to give my readers like secondhand trauma just by reading these things that we would have never published. Mm-hmm. So if you're thinking of writing them, maybe check it before sending it to everyone.
Yeah, that goes in a spiral bound notebook that you keep in the bottom drawer. And when you die, make the police come and search your house. That's when they find it. You don't send it out to people. And then instantly decide to read it further. I'm a Southerner. To me, voice.
Yeah.
If you have an enrapturing storyteller's voice from the get-go, I will keep reading, and I have often wanted to publish things that had a weaker arc. They had a stronger voice.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean, Stuart.
And part of that to me was because Causeway is a little nurturing literary journal. So, somebody can learn to do an arc, but that voice, if you capture an artist with an amazing voice on their first or second piece, years down the road, you're going to be able to say, I published that guy.
Right.
I published that lady. That she.
Stuart, can I ask you you just said 2 things. So one was about the ex-husband and the and the ex-wife, and then the voice. Is there a line, and is it distinct for you? Say, if somebody wrote a story that was an ex-husband writing to an ex-wife, just to like literally, and the voice was in such a way that the reader could tell, okay, this is not the writer's belief.
Yeah.
This is the writing about a crazy person, who's writing to us, has that ever happened to you where it's like, okay, this is might be a little edgy, people might be uncomfortable with this, but I can tell?
There you'll find a lot of I could say a lot of Southern noir
Yeah.
that comes from that crazy voice.
Yeah.
And yeah, and you're right. There's a fine line that as a reader you have to be able to distinguish: is this a person who is carrying out a grudge, or is it a writer trying to teach us something about this type of person? And in there, I think you really have to look at the arc to see, if the crazy ex-husband ends up with a redemption arc, or if it ends up with a retribution arc.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, hard and fast rules, no, but I would say in the case of someone trying to use that voice, you have to be so deft. My current work in progress, I have set in the Mississippi Delta, a gay Black man accused of child molestation. So I have, white characters who are racist. I have Black characters who are homophobic. And holy God, am I going at that at kid gloves?
Yeah.
I've read and read and read. I've interviewed people who have been, in those positions, so that I can get the voice right and show why they're being presented, but without making them a cardboard cutout and without
Right.
So I mean, you can tell when someone's put the work in to present a rounded evil figure.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's very obvious, to be honest with you. I mean, maybe you don't read it on the first page or whatever, but for the most cases, I think it's very obvious when someone is pushing the buttons in a very inappropriate manner, and whether someone is trying something, And then just honestly, to Stuart's point, when he's talking about like his own writing, like I think it's great to come at it from the sense of like knowing you need to check yourself, and that's what readers can do. Similarly, I think they can hire sensitivity readers, and in the cases where we've gotten something that maybe were more trauma informed or edgy, I can tell the instances where people have absolutely like either hired a sensitivity reader or had people to help them with their work. We have published a few things that were definitely edgy. Speaking of SEO in the beginning, one of our like most searched keywords is like sex for the recently divorced, which was the title of a piece in our first issue ever. So we've gotten some and I wouldn't say necessarily that was extremely edgy, but we've gotten some interesting submissions because of that. And again, you can tell when people are pushing it because they want to push it and make a very obvious scene, and when people are trying to be literary in something that may be more edgy.
I'm glad you said divorced and not deceased.
Oh, Lindsay, Valerie, excuse me, I'm sorry about my throat. You guys are so great. Lindsay, Valerie, anything to share on this really interesting question? Instant rejection or instantly, I want to know more? Maybe instant acceptance? Maybe.
I think in addition to the conversation that's been taking place, which I think is really like an instant rejection if it's something that's blatantly toxic or, sort of like, I guess enough has been said about that. But the two things that I think when I read a piece make it really difficult for me to continue to push through. One of them is just font choice. And I don't mean... I don't mean like, did you use Times or did you use Georgia? But like, you get those things that are just, even from like an accessibility standpoint, very difficult to read if they're in, I mean, the classic example is Comic Sans, and I've seen it, but there are worse ones out there, and I have seen those too. So it makes it just sort of a struggle to get through. It can be a struggle for, our readers to get through. I'm not saying I won't continue to read it, because I will, but it will not feel good. And the second thing I think for me is I'm very pro, if you have strong language that you need to use to convey your point in a powerful way, I'm about that. But if I'm seeing gratuitous, just use of swears for the sake of, you know, they're swearing or there's language and we're not using it to push the story forward. We're just using it because we can. That sort of turns me away from a piece too.
I hear you. I hear you. Thank you so much for sharing. This is the, you know, all of this is what the people need to know, but we're getting down to the nitty gritty here. You know, we don't want to be instantly rejected, people, you know, and I think this is really good and really important to hear and to share. Valerie, anything you'd like to add? Instant rejection, instant acceptance?
So to that point, creative nonfiction particularly, if it's just anecdotal, yes, I will. I try to finish reading everything. It's just kind of an ethics thing of, you know, to finish. There are very few that I don't read through the whole thing, but thankfully I read short stuff for brevity and, you know, Causeway that we did. But if it's anecdotal, it's not gonna. I know even if I like it, the however many other readers and levels are not, you know, not gonna pass it on. And I would say that's true because there have been some things that maybe tug at the heartstring because of the content of what it is, but it's anecdotal and there's got to be a little more depth there.
Right.
And excavating is a word they use a lot, you know, going on. And then I guess Stuart called it voice, but if it just really moves me emotionally and also something that is novel, like whether it's the idea or the use of language, just something that's novel and catches you off guard, that's a winner. That's like, oh wow, I'm going to give this one a thumbs up.
I think it's interesting because everybody seems to be very specific about what they say no to, right? I mean, whether it's, you know, racist content or Comic Sans or whatever. But that thing that makes you keep reading is kind of hard to pinpoint, right? I mean, it's like, okay, the voice. It's a voice. It's an interesting voice, but it's hard to say. It's hard to be that specific. Like,
true. You know what? Yeah, that is.
It's the writing, you know, and that's the crux of it. What gets you rejected is, I mean, bigotry and technical flaws. What keeps us going is the writing.
Yeah.
Right. It's, you know it when you see it.
That's exactly it.
Right. It grabs you. You know it. We have another question up here, which is an important question for people seeking to be published, because part of some guidelines is pretty much always that it has not been published yet, right? So Belke has a question here. What counts as pre-published? Does social media count as pre-published? If you published, let's say, a poem on your Facebook page, for example. Anyone can jump in.
Doesn't that vary from journal to journal?
It does.
I mean, some include your blogs, as if anyone really has blogs anymore. But okay, sure, guy.
Well, my understanding, I mean, because I'm sorry, Lindsay and Aaron, did you want to go ahead and say, you didn't jump right in there? My understanding is if it's anywhere on the interweb, that's considered pre-published. And so don't put it on Facebook, don't put it, or Twitter, whatever your social media is. Don't put it on your blog. Don't put it out there if you want to submit it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I mean, like the smallest thing caveat to that is like, you know, there was one, something we published a while back that had like a clip of social media within the piece.
Yeah.
And again, it didn't have identifying information, so that was fine. But for the most part, I would say anything that is present on the internet, and it does not matter what type of internet, like me, and I say that like, it doesn't matter if like your school published it, like in their like, you know, department's tiny thing, it is considered published. I mean, Lindsay and I have actually been in the unfortunate situation where it is the night before publishing, we allow our readers to be able to spot check their work before we announce it publicly, only to find out that it was published like widely before. It was just something that we didn't find immediately on our quick fact checking, and that's unfortunate for us because we worked really hard on the piece. It takes a lot of work to actually put things up on the internet, like, do the technical publishing as well. So I think for us at Spry, it's anything that is on the internet that has been previously published is a no-no.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That is an important piece of information. And we have a question from Valerie.
Oh, in keeping with the recent Twitter discourse,
Go ahead.
in keeping with the recent Twitter discourse, I guess Spry should have published a piece about not publishing pieces that have been previously published, and then discovered that that piece had been previously published and then withdraw. I'm sorry.
Super meta.
Too much on Twitter.
So from Valerie, we have a question for Erin and Lindsay. Does the cover letter really matter?
Or like, I mean, what are you looking for in it? Like, when I'm sending stuff, I'm like, what are, because I never look at, as a reader, I don't really look at them. I'd rather not know, well,
submissions.
Right.
Yeah. So in our case, again, we're using Submittable, and Submittable has different levels of security, I'd say. So our readers don't even have it. Like, our readers have zero access to the cover letter, and we read on a low, like, even though we have an admin account, we read on a lower level where we have no access to the cover letter. So when I mentioned them earlier, my point was, like, I mean, write your life story in there if you want, because we're not going to see it until we go to the administrative account, click accept, and then your information is there for us. But, I remember being in grad school and being like, literally talking to Lindsay and being like, Lindsay, what the heck am I supposed to say in this? Like, I oddly worked in HR before. So, like, I don't know, my HR brain was like, should I give them like an overview of like my like experience? But for Spry, I mean, we really don't care. Like, I do think it's really nice to have a bio, just for the fun fact that after I've accepted someone, I'm like, oh my gosh, Joe Schmo lives in California and he plays guitar. How cool! But that's just for my own, interest. Lindsay, would you say anything else?
I would mostly agree. I would say the cover letter, especially based on our process, has no bearing on whether or not you are accepted or rejected. I would say for me, what it does is informs the first conversation that I have with you as an accepted writer who I might be working with to make tweaks. It might help me understand your perspective a little bit better. It might help me, just have almost, like, for lack of a better term, like an icebreaker. It's like a nice relationship building step that sticks with me. But yeah, I would, it necessarily doesn't impact their acceptance or rejection.
You've never rejected somebody after accepting them based on the cover letter.
Right. Right. You already
Not yet.
It's a first. No racist input.
It's a great question though, Chris, because like for us, when we first started, we had a lot of rules that we thought would guide how we publish things. One of which we were hoping that we would never publish people in back-to-back issues. So originally we were asking for people to wait one issue. So that's one piece of information. The second piece is that even currently we allow people to submit in all genres, but we only allow one person to, like, one thing to be published in each issue, because you saw our image way we have our first page set up. So we don't want like 7 Chris Belden heads on that first page, right? So I share those two pieces of information with you because there have been times, even though we've never rejected anyone, there have been times that we have actually gone to accept someone only to find out that we have already accepted them. Again, that happened in the early days. And what we did at that point was we were like, okay, we're not really willing to let go of this piece because we liked it that much. Right. So we contacted the author and asked them if we could publish it in the next issue because we only wanted to publish them in one. And in the opposite piece of information that I shared, we have just said like, hey, we've already accepted you. We were not aware that your stuff was still in the reader. We do have that admin account where team members will go in and remove things. So a lot of times that doesn't happen. But in the instance then that did happen, we would just like mark it completed. Like, we're not rejecting you anymore. We're just not going to publish anything additional.
That is so fascinating, and that sounds like a solid system you've got going on there. We want to say one more time, thank you so much to all of you, Stuart, Valerie, Erin, Lindsay, for joining us this evening from Causeway Lit and Spry. One more round of applause for everyone. Before we head out, we have just one last time. Chris, I just want to ask everybody a pearl of wisdom question. What would be like your main pearl of wisdom for writers out there seeking to be published in a literary journal? Your number one pearl of wisdom. We'll go around the room. Let's start with Lindsay.
I think this might sound a little trite, but I think what I always come back to is separating the ego from the response.
Yes.
Like if you've been rejected, okay, that doesn't mean like never send this piece out again. That doesn't mean it's unpublishable. You know, it hurts. Take a minute with it and then put it out there somewhere else if you believe in it. Like there's not to let that, you know, if there's anything in there that you could learn from, take a minute, decide what you want to take forward from that, but never, you know, don't write yourself off just because you've received discouraging news.
Right. Excellent. Thank you, Lindsay, for that pearl. Valerie, a pearl?
Have a hobby that you win at regularly.
Yeah.
I play Words with Friends. I play Words with Friends. I do Wordle. I'm just taking on Redecorator recently, and when I get a first place, I'm like, who cares about that thing that didn't get published? But it sounds silly, but I think that having something in your life where you win at, that there's like that instant gratification,
yes,
kind of offsets those rejection letters.
I like that. Thank you for that pearl, Valerie. Erin?
I would say, I mean, going with the same theme that we have here, but on a slightly different take, it is getting your work in a literary journal is a numbers game. Same for other types of publishing. So not only about the rejection, but it is vital that you submit as much as you can, as often as you can, as many times as you can. You know, back in the early days when Chris, Katie, Lindsay, and I were all in school, simultaneous submissions were some journals allowed them, many journals did not. But you know, now in 2022, I mean, I think most journals, especially it's like, you know, just allow the simultaneous submissions. It is such a normal practice. So if you have one essay and you want to try to ship it out there, submit it to 25 places. Like 3 isn't a lot, you know, submit it to 100 places. Just keep track of where you're submitting it if you don't have a tool like Submittable, because the more you get it out there, the more likely your chances to get published.
Excellent advice. Thank you so much for that pearl, Erin. And Stuart, a pearl before we wrap up.
To piggyback off of Erin, once you have submitted that piece to a whole bunch, move on. Go to the next one.
Yep.
A couple of days ago, I tweeted a quote from John McPhee, who taught at Princeton. Your last piece is never going to write your next one for you.
Right? Yep. Excellent. And another excellent pearl. Thank you so much, Spry Literary Journal and Causeway Lit. Thank you so much, Lindsay, Erin, Stuart, and Valerie. It was so wonderful to talk with you this evening. Applause. One more applause. We love you guys. Thank you so much for sharing with us about your journal. We learned so much tonight. Audience out there, thank you for watching. And you know what you have to do. You got to check out Causeway Lit. You need to check out Spry Literary Journal, and you need to send out your pieces as much as possible. All right. We are off for the next 2 weeks, and we will see you in June.
If you're jonesing for Fumfa, Poets and Writers Live, there are the archives.
The archives.
Which have 95 readings and discussions like this tonight to choose from. So go crazy. Binge.
Wild. Yes.
We'll be back on the 5th of June. And also, just a little self-promotion, on Tuesday night, I'll be performing at Sugar Hollow in Danbury for those people in the Connecticut area.
Be there.
She'll be there. She's going to sing with me.
Yes, that's the plan.
I hope all of you guys on the island on Alumni Day, possibly.
Woo! Yes. All right, everybody, have a fabulous rest of your evening. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we will see you in June. Bye.